Have you ever wondered what secrets the world hides, where danger and mystery meet? Welcome to Unearthed Secrets, exploring the most mysterious artifacts and locations history can't fully explain. Hit subscribe, like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from and the time there. Let's begin. The gate that breathed death. They called it a gate to the underworld, a place where the breath of death itself rose from the earth, unseen but undeniable. The ancients whispered that Pluto, the god of the underworld, held dominion here, and that even the bravest men did not linger long before its invisible exhalations. To stand before it was to feel a strange hush creep into the bones, as though the earth itself reminded you of the thin boundary between the living and the dead. Welcome then to Hierapolis, a city of stone terraces and flowing waters, of hot springs and travertine cliffs that gleam like ivory in the sun. It is here in the folds of modern-day Turkey that the Ploutonion, the fabled gate to hell, once drew pilgrims, priests, and wanderers alike. Tonight let us wander too, slowly, softly, without haste, into its history, its myth, its ritual, and the strange air that still carries echoes of its mysteries. The city of Hierapolis lies above a shimmering white landscape, formed by mineral-rich waters that cascade down from the hills. Even in ancient times these thermal springs drew visitors, their waters thought to heal the body, to soothe the skin, to restore the weary. The city itself, founded by the Seleucids and later absorbed into the Roman world, was a thriving place of temples, baths, and marketplaces. Yet beyond its streets, at the edge of its sacred spaces, lay a grotto, unlike any other, the Ploutonion. It was a small cave. No grand temple, no towering archway. Its entrance was unassuming, a fissure at the base of a cliff, draped in shadows and seeping a mist that hugged the ground. But the ancients knew this was no ordinary crack in the stone. Here, animals that strayed too close collapsed as if struck by an invisible hand. Birds that flew low over its mouth dropped lifeless from the air. Even strong men felt dizzy when they approached. To the ancients, it was proof of the underworld's nearness, of Pluto's presence, and so they built a sanctuary around it, a sacred enclosure where priests alone could enter without harm. Or so it seemed. It is easy to imagine the scene centuries ago. Pilgrims arriving in Hierapolis after long journeys, their sandals coated in dust, their faces sun-worn and weary. Some came for the healing springs, hoping the mineral waters might ease their pains. Others came for the Ploutonion, to witness the place where the underworld breathed upon the world of the living. They would gather outside the cave, a low murmuring crowd. Priests in flowing robes would step forward, calm and deliberate, carrying animals, bulls, sheep, birds, to offer as sacrifices. The people watched as the creatures were led near the cave, at first restless, then staggering, then collapsing. Lifeless, claimed by an unseen force. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Surely, they thought, this was the breath of Pluto himself. And yet the priests themselves walked close, their faces serene, their steps steady. They entered the cave, vanished into its shadows, lingered within. When they emerged, alive and unharmed, the awe of the crowd deepened. How could this be? The people believed the priests were protected by the gods, chosen men, holy men, immune to the deathly exhalations of the underworld. Their survival was not just spectacle, it was proof of divine favor. And so offerings poured in, coins clinked into the temple's treasury. Prayers were whispered with trembling lips. We, of course, know something the ancients did not. The cave exhaled not the breath of Pluto, but carbon dioxide. The earth itself leaked the gas, invisible and deadly. It clung to the ground in a low, dense cloud, suffocating animals that breathed it in. The priests, however, knew the secret. They remained above the lowest levels where fresh air still drifted. Standing taller than the animals, careful in their movements, they appeared untouched by the gods' deadly breath. But to the people it was no trick. It was holy power, and in truth, who can say it was not holy in its own way? The earth itself speaking, unseen and lethal, shaping belief, commanding reverence. The rituals at the Ploutonion were not mere displays. They were acts that reinforced the delicate balance between life and death, mortal and divine. For those who came seeking signs, the gate to hell offered certainty. Death was not distant, it was near, just beneath the earth, breathing upon them. Imagine yourself there, the stone terrace warm beneath your feet, the air tinged with sulfur, the murmurs of the crowd hushed by anticipation. You hold your breath as the bull falters, its great body shuddering, then collapses with a dull thud. A moment of silence, then whispers, prayers, exclamations, the rustle of garments as people shift uneasily. Then the priest, white-robed and calm, steps closer. He lingers at the edge, then enters. His form dissolves into shadow, swallowed by the cave. For a heartbeat, the crowd waits, silent. Then he emerges, untouched. Murmurs rise like a tide. Awe, reverence, belief. Coins clatter into offering bowls. Incense burns. Songs rise. The underworld has spoken, and its gate has been honored. But the Ploutonion was more than ritual. It was a threshold, a symbolic crossing point, a reminder that the world of the living was fragile, poised always at the edge of the unseen. The ancients knew many such thresholds. In Greece there were caves thought to lead to Hades, at Tainaron, at Acheron, at Eleusis. In Italy the volcanic fumes of Lake Avernus were said to be another portal. The Ploutonion at Hierapolis was part of this larger map of imagined underworld gates, places where the veil between worlds thinned, where the living might sense the presence of the dead. For the people of Hierapolis, this was not mere metaphor, it was lived reality. To approach the cave was to feel it, the sudden dizziness, the acrid tang in the air, the unsettling hush. The body itself testified that this was a place of otherworldly power, and so they wove stories. Some said that Pluto himself walked these grounds, claiming the sacrifices as his due. Others whispered that the souls of the dead rose here seeking release. Some believed that standing near the cave brought visions, glimpses of the underworld, flashes of departed loved ones, whispers carried in the mist. Whether true or imagined, such stories made the Ploutonion more than a cave. It became a stage for belief, a canvas upon which the human need to understand death painted its vivid myths. As the centuries turned, Hierapolis endured. Earthquakes shook its stones, fires scarred its temples, empires rose and fell. The Ploutonion too remained, a strange fissure still exhaling its invisible breath. But the rituals waned, the crowds thinned, and in time the site was buried, forgotten beneath rubble and soil. It was only in modern times that archaeologists rediscovered it, carefully unearthing the sanctuary, measuring its gases, and piecing together its ancient role. Today it lies open once more, a curiosity for visitors, a reminder of how myth and nature intertwine. The gases still rise, birds that stray too close still falter. Researchers measure the concentrations, noting how they rise and fall with the day's warmth, pooling low in the enclosure. It is no longer a temple, no longer a place of sacrifice, and yet standing there one cannot help but feel a shiver of the old awe. The gate to hell still breathes, and now, as you drift deeper into this story, imagine yourself walking through the silent ruins of Hierapolis. The travertine terraces gleam in the moonlight, the pools ripple softly, the air carries both warmth and a trace of sulfur. The streets are empty, the colonnades broken, but the sense of presence lingers. You turn a corner, descend a slope, and there it is, the cave, dark and unassuming, the Ploutonion. You pause at its edge, watching the mist curl low across the ground. You do not step closer, some instinct holds you still, but you breathe in the silence, the weight of the place, the nearness of the unseen. You feel the thinness of the veil, the way this place is both earth and underworld, both history and myth. You let the thought settle, heavy but not frightening, a reminder that life is brief, death is near, and mystery is endless. The gate does not speak, it does not move, it only breathes, slow and unseen, as it has for millennia. And in that breath, the world feels vast, ancient, eternal. The priests in their white robes still glide through the mist of memory. Their rituals echo faintly in your mind as you wander the terraces. The pools of hot water reflect stars long gone, and civilizations long vanished. The shadows play across broken columns, whispering stories of devotion, sacrifice, awe, wonder. As night descends fully, the smell of sulfur and earth mingles with the cool air. The mist thickens, and for a moment the boundary between now and then, living and dead, feels almost unreal, almost touchable. The Ploutonion holds its secret, unchanging, as it has since the first offerings were brought, a testament to human fascination with the unknowable, with death, with the unseen forces beneath our feet. The air shifts slightly, a breeze stirs the mist, and the ghost of belief, of awe, of fear and reverence drifts around you, a reminder that even in our modern world, some gates remain, some mysteries endure, some breaths of the underworld linger, invisible yet potent, unbroken through centuries. As you step back, leaving the cave behind, the echo of its presence remains, carried in your mind, in the silence of the terraces, in the cool night air. The gate that breathed death waits still, watching, silent, eternal, a bridge between the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. And as you walk away, you realize that for those who approach it with curiosity, with respect, with an open heart, the Ploutonion continues to breathe, continues to teach, continues to haunt, a reminder that some doors are never truly closed, and that the world is far deeper, stranger, and more mysterious than we can ever fully grasp. And in that truth lies a beauty, as potent and powerful as any god, any ritual, any breath of death itself. And so the story ends, yet does not end. For the gate remains, for Hierapolis remains, for the whisper of Pluto's domain continues in the mist, the stones, the air, the imagination, unbroken, unyielding, eternal. The throne that no king claimed. They called it the Lion Throne, but it was more than a throne, it was a statement, a symbol carved from wood and gold, inlaid with precious gems and intricate carvings. Yet no king ever truly claimed it, no ruler ever sat upon it with full authority. It resides in Mysore, in Karnataka, India, a land of lush forests, rolling hills, and palaces that gleam in the tropical sun. Mysore itself was the seat of a kingdom with centuries of history. The Wodiers ruled here, princely families tracing their lineage through generations. their courts filled with opulence, pageantry, and rituals that impressed even the most wandering travelers. And yet, in the midst of this royal splendor, stood the Lion Throne, majestic, formidable, untouched, a throne that carried both power and mystery. It was said that the throne was built to honor the divine right of kings, to embody courage, sovereignty, and authority. The lions carved along its back, and arms were not merely decorative, they were guardians, watching, eternal, eyes seemingly alive with the weight of history, their claws etched with precision, their mouths open as if mid-roar, capturing the raw energy of a predator poised to strike. Yet paradoxically, no monarch ever used it as a seat of command. Legends whispered that it was cursed, that any king who tried to claim the throne would face doom. Some said madness, others said untimely death. The stories passed down through generations, embroidered with fear and awe. Travelers and courtiers alike would glimpse it across the great hall, behind velvet drapes or shining columns. Its presence commanding yet intimidating, a throne that promised authority yet withheld it. Imagine the palace in its full splendor, cool stone floors reflecting sunlight, the scent of sandalwood incense lingering in the air, musicians tuning their instruments for ceremonial music, courtiers in silks and jewels moving gracefully, and there, at the center of the hall, the Lion Throne, rising on its dais, golden gleam catching the eyes of all who entered, a throne that dared you to approach, yet warned you to hesitate. Some claimed that the throne was built not merely to sit upon, but to test the spirit of the ruler, that it judged courage, wisdom, and restraint. Only a king who truly understood his own heart and the weight of responsibility could sit without consequence, and so it remained empty. A symbol of authority, yet untouched by mortal ambition. The artisans who carved it were masters of their craft, the wood sourced from sacred forests, dense and fragrant, resistant to time and decay. The lions, meticulously detailed, seem almost to breathe, their fur carved with fine precision, muscles taut as if ready to pounce, eyes inlaid with onyx and ruby, reflecting light with a glimmer that seems alive. The arms and backrest feature intricate motifs, floral patterns intertwined with mythical creatures, each a story, each a warning. The throne is elevated on a platform, steps carved with patterns of waves and vines, suggesting a connection between the earth and the heavens, every detail intentional, a masterpiece that surpasses mere furniture. It is art, it is legend, it is challenge. The Wodiers themselves were aware of its power. They maintained it with reverence, allowing it to occupy the central hall of the palace. Yet none dared sit for more than ceremonial purposes, and even then, only for brief moments. The court chroniclers wrote of kings pausing, hand hovering above the armrest, sensing something unseen, a weight pressing on the chest, a whisper in the mind, urging caution. Stories tell of one ruler who, emboldened by pride, attempted to sit fully upon the throne, only to feel a sudden dizziness, a deep foreboding, a sense that unseen eyes scrutinized his every thought. He stepped down quickly, pale, unsettled, and never returned. The throne remained, silent, watching, commanding yet elusive. Beyond the legends, there is history intertwined with myth. Mysore itself was a city of grandeur, the palace halls lined with marble, ceilings painted with frescoes of gods and warriors, courtyards alive with fountains and gardens, the sounds of temple bells echoing from afar. Within this vibrant city, the Lion Throne was more than wood and metal. It was an idea, the embodiment of restraint and responsibility, power that is observed rather than exercised. Kings could rule, but they could not command the throne's authority. It was as if the throne itself chose the moments of blessing and censure. It judged when to elevate and when to warn. Consider the symbolism, the lion itself, king of beasts, a creature that commands respect and inspires awe. Yet here, carved into a throne, it does not subdue, it does not obey. It watches, silent and eternal. The ruler becomes humble before it, reminded that power is not simply possession, it is understanding. And in this way the throne teaches even without a voice, even without a ruler. Imagine wandering through the palace halls today, the cool stone underfoot, sunlight filtering through latticed windows, shadows playing across the gilded surfaces, and there it is, the Lion Throne, its presence undeniable, the air tinged with the scent of polished wood and age. You approach slowly, aware that every detail, every curve, every line carved centuries ago still carries meaning, and you feel the hush of reverence, the weight of history, the invisible authority that asks nothing but respect. The throne has survived wars, invasions, and changing dynasties. It has been preserved because the Wodiars understood its significance. They protected it, even as empires rose and fell around it. The Lion Throne is more than a seat. It is a witness. It is a teacher. It is a challenge. It reminds all who enter that true power lies not in possession, but in understanding, in humility, in respect for forces greater than oneself. The stories of its curse, of kings deterred by unseen pressure, are as much a part of its legacy as the gilded carvings. They shape the way people perceive it, they keep it untarnished, untouched, sacred. One can imagine a day in the royal court, musicians playing soft flowing melodies on venas and flutes, courtiers in elegant attire, pausing their conversations as the doors open, and there, before all, the lion throne, gleaming, magnificent, daring a ruler to approach fully, a hush falling over the crowd, as eyes fix upon the empty seat. The king may step forward, hand brushing lightly against the carved lion's mane, feeling the craftsmanship, the artistry, the centuries of intention embedded in every line. Yet instinct urges him back, the energy, the weight, the silence. The throne asks for more than a hand, it asks for the heart, for understanding, for humility, and so the king steps aside, bowing slightly, acknowledging that some power is not meant to be held. The courtiers nod, some whisper prayers, others exchange glances of awe, and the throne remains, eternal, teaching without speaking, commanding without force. The lion throne is also a story of artistry. The artisans who labored on it were not mere carpenters, they were visionaries. Understanding that the throne must embody duality, beauty and warning, majesty and humility, life and caution, the wood was treated, seasoned over years, gold leaf applied with patience, each gem set precisely, catching light in a way that seems almost deliberate, alive, reflecting a glimmer of the throne's presence onto those who look upon it, beyond the palace walls. Mysore thrives, its streets echo with life, markets bustling with color and spice. Yet even today, visitors make their way to the palace to stand before the lion throne, to feel that hush, that invisible weight. The air around it seems different, cooler, heavier, as if it remembers centuries of kings and courtiers, of ceremonies, whispers, decisions made and deferred. The throne is not static, it carries memory, presence, a subtle authority that transcends time. Even scholars who study it, who measure its dimensions, trace the carvings, catalog every gem, cannot claim to possess it, cannot claim to command it. They may record, they may analyze, yet the throne remains sovereign, untouchable in its essence. It is a reminder that some objects are beyond ownership. They are symbols, they are teachers, they are living stories in themselves. The lion throne is also a bridge, connecting the human desire for power with the understanding of restraint. It tells the tale of kings who learned humility, of rulers who recognized that authority is not always exercised physically. Sometimes it is observed, sometimes it is respected, sometimes it is approached carefully, with measured steps and mindful heart. Imagine the throne in quiet twilight, the palace nearly empty, shadows lengthening across the marble floors, the soft rustle of silk as attendants leave, the echo of distant bells, and there, in the center of the hall, the lion throne stands, bathed in fading light, golden gleam muted, but power undimmed. The carvings of lions watch silently, guarding, commanding, teaching. The air around it holds centuries of stories, whispers of kings who sat briefly, of those who dared not sit at all, of artisans who poured their skill and soul into its creation. The throne becomes more than wood, more than gold, more than jewels. It becomes a vessel of human experience, a teacher of restraint, a monument to understanding, to humility, to awe, and as you step closer you feel it, a subtle pull, an invitation to respect, to reflect, to recognize that some power is never claimed. It is honored, observed, revered. The throne does not need a king to validate it. It validates itself, through time, through presence, through history, through the eyes of those who approach with humility and curiosity. And so, centuries pass. Empires rise and fall. The warriors continue their line. Yet the lion throne remains unchanged, untarnished, eternal. The kings may rule, their decrees may echo through the land, but the throne remains, a silent witness, a teacher, a challenge. And even today, when the palace is quiet, the throne seems almost alive, the lion's eyes glinting, as if aware of your gaze, their silent authority palpable, reminding all who stand before it that true mastery is not taking, not claiming, but understanding, respecting, observing, a lesson in power that transcends eras. The throne that no king claimed is more than a story. It is a journey, a meditation, a whisper across centuries. And even as you leave the hall, the echo of its presence follows you, a soft, persistent reminder that some forces in this world are not owned, not conquered, not sat upon, but honored, watched, and revered. And in this recognition, one finds a quiet kind of awe, a humility that lingers long after footsteps have faded, a lesson from a throne that has never been claimed, a throne that teaches without words, commands without force, and watches eternally as the world moves on around it, carrying the legacy of art, of caution, of kingship, and of human curiosity. Forevermore, the lion throne waits, silent, golden, eternal, a monument to what power truly is, not possession, but understanding. The sword that waited for a hand. In the quiet village of Rocamadour, high upon the cliffs of southwestern France, a sword waits. It has waited for centuries, resting in shadowed stone alcoves, in chapels lined with flickering candles, amidst echoes of pilgrims' prayers and whispered legends. This is no ordinary sword. They call it durandal, a blade said to possess not only sharpness and strength but a soul, a presence that senses the worthiness of those who approach it. The sword waits, not for war, not for conquest, but for the hand of one who could wield it with courage, wisdom, and honor. And so, through centuries of kings and knights, of pilgrims and wanderers, it remains, untouched, yet eternally present, a silent guardian of history and myth. Rocamadour itself is a place of stone terraces, perched precariously along cliffs, overlooking the valley below. Pilgrims have traveled here for generations, drawn by the sanctity of the grottos, the statues of saints, the soft murmur of the Alzou River below. And within this sacred and precarious landscape rests durandal, often displayed behind iron grills, sometimes in a chapel, sometimes in a small museum, yet always leaving those who see it with a sense of awe, as if the sword could weigh their very souls. According to legend, durandal was the sword of Roland, the paladin of Charlemagne, whose tales are sung in the chansons de geste, epic poems of bravery, loyalty, and tragedy. Roland, entrusted with durandal, carried it through countless battles, a symbol of divine favor and martial prowess. Yet even in the hands of Roland, durandal was not merely a weapon. It was a companion, a protector, a reminder of the responsibilities of power, of honor, of courage, in the face of overwhelming odds. And when Roland's fate met him in the pass of Roncevaux, he tried to destroy durandal, fearing it would fall into enemy hands, striking it upon a rock to break it. Yet the sword would not yield, would not break, as if it too had a will, a destiny that transcended human desire. And so through centuries it was preserved, carried to Rocamadour, hidden, revered, displayed, always waiting. Imagine standing before it now. The quiet of the chapel pressing gently against the ears, the scent of candle wax and stone mingling with the cool mountain air. The sword lies within a case, or perhaps behind iron bars, its steel gleaming even in dim light, hilt intricately carved, adorned with symbols of faith and valor. The grip is worn, not by battles, but by centuries of reverence, of hands that never quite touched it, of minds imagining what it would mean to wield such a blade. There is a hum about it, though no sound can be heard, a resonance that resonates within those who approach with respect and curiosity, a pull that asks for contemplation rather than haste. Pilgrims have told stories of standing before it, feeling their hearts race, their breath catch, as if the sword recognized something hidden within them, a test invisible yet undeniable. Some speak of dreams, visions of knights and battles, of courage demanded and honor upheld, all flowing from the silent metal blade waiting for a hand. Durandal is not merely a relic of the past. It is a bridge between history and imagination, between the mortal and the mythic, between the tangible and the spiritual. In Rocamadour, it is enshrined not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of ideals, of the human struggle to uphold virtue in a world of uncertainty and peril. Its presence reminds visitors that power carries responsibility, that strength without wisdom is dangerous, that courage is most profound when tempered with restraint. Imagine the chapel at dawn, the first light spilling through narrow windows, illuminating dust motes that dance in the beams. The sword rests, cold yet alive, reflecting light in a way that seems almost sentient, a blade aware of every gaze, every whisper, every prayer. It has seen kings and peasants, priests and pilgrims, scholars and travelers, yet it remains indifferent, waiting for the hand that will meet it with the right measure of spirit. And throughout the centuries, many have tried, in stories and in imagination, to claim durandal, to grasp its hilt and feel its weight, only to step back, humbled by the presence, by the quiet authority of a sword that does not bend to ambition. A sword that waits, patient, eternal, unclaimed. The craftsmanship of durandal is exquisite, the steel forged and tempered, the hilt ornate with engravings and gems that catch light in subtle flashes, symbols of valor, faith, and the divine favor said to bless its wielder. Every inch of the blade speaks of skill, of purpose, of intention beyond mere combat. It is designed not only to be sharp, but to inspire awe, to command respect, to challenge the one who would pick it up to examine the weight of history it carries. Rocamadour, as a site, elevates this experience. The cliffs, the winding paths, the small chapels and grottos, all lend an air of reverence, as if nature itself conspires to remind visitors of the sacredness of the place and of the sword that waits within it. Visitors speak of quiet moments when time seems suspended, when the air around durandal feels charged, the energy almost palpable, a tension that is not threatening, but instructive, a call to introspection, a whisper of the ideals the sword embodies. Some say that if one listens carefully, one can hear echoes of the past, the clash of blades, the cries of warriors, the prayers of saints, all resonating through the centuries into the present moment. It is not magic, perhaps, but memory, the memory of human aspiration, courage, and faith. all concentrated within the form of the blade. Scholars have traced the history of Durandal through manuscripts, chronicles, and local legend. Some question whether the sword in Rocamadour is the original, others suggest it may be a ceremonial copy, yet its significance remains undiminished because its power lies not in ownership but in recognition, not in wielding but in understanding. The sword teaches without words, it conveys lessons through its presence. It asks for patience, for humility, for respect, for acknowledgement of forces greater than oneself, for the recognition that some objects, some ideals, cannot be claimed by brute force or ambition, but must be approached with reverence. In the quiet of the chapel, one can imagine the journey of Roland, the original wielder, feeling the weight of the sword, the weight of his duty, the responsibility to uphold justice and honor, the burden of mortal courage against the sweep of history, and then the act of trying to destroy it, realizing that even in his attempt to rid the world of its power, the sword endured, waiting for a hand worthy of its purpose, waiting for a hand that could meet it with understanding rather than desire, courage rather than recklessness. Pilgrims who make the climb to Rocamadour today feel something similar. Not in the act of battle, but in the act of reflection. They stand before Durandal and feel a connection across time, across centuries, to those who came before, to the ideals the sword represents, to the quiet patience that defines it. Even in silence, Durandal speaks, a lesson in restraint, a testament to the enduring nature of virtue, a reminder that history is not merely recorded in events, but in the symbols we revere and the ideals we carry forward. The chapel, the sword, the cliffs, the pilgrims, all create a tapestry of experience that is both historical and spiritual, a reminder that Durandal's story is intertwined with human aspiration, courage, and morality. And as the day wanes, as sunlight softens and shadows lengthen across stone floors, the sword waits still. Its steel gleams faintly in candlelight, its hilt reflecting glimmers of centuries, its presence a silent witness to countless visitors, many in awe, some in contemplation, others in wonder, all touched by the enduring patience and quiet authority of the blade. Imagine approaching the sword carefully, fingers hovering over the hilt, sensing the resonance, the hum of history, the gravity of responsibility embedded in steel. You do not grasp it hastily, for the sword does not belong to the moment. It belongs to understanding, to contemplation, to reflection, to the recognition that some power is not seized but acknowledged, honored, revered, and then slowly stepping back, bowing in respect, feeling the weight of centuries, feeling the lesson in patience, courage and humility, you leave the chapel, carrying the memory of Durandal with you. A sword that waited for a hand, a sword that waits still, a symbol of ideals enduring across time, unclaimed by force, yet fully present, a teacher in steel, a guardian of human aspiration, a quiet whisper of history and myth entwined. Even as night falls, the candles guttering, the shadows stretching long, the sword remains, patiently waiting, untouched, eternal, a bridge between past and present, a reminder that the measure of power is not in the hand that holds, but in the heart that understands, the courage that respects, the humility that reveres, and so Durandal remains in Rocamadour, waiting for the hand worthy of it, a legend alive, a presence palpable, a story unbroken through centuries, and as one departs, the echo of its patience, its authority, its silent lessons follow you, leaving a sense of awe, reverence, and quiet contemplation, a reminder that some forces in the world are eternal, untouchable, and waiting, always waiting, for the right hand to meet them, not with haste, but with understanding. And in that waiting, in that eternal pause, lies the enduring majesty of Durandal, the sword that waited for a hand, the blade that carries centuries within its steel, the legend that transcends time, teaching patience, courage, restraint, and honor to all who pause long enough to notice, to reflect, to feel the quiet, unclaimed authority of history, waiting to touch the heart, not the hand. The drum that summons spirits. In the vast, frozen expanse of Siberia, where the wind whispers secrets through endless forests of larch and pine, there exists a drum. It is no ordinary drum. It is a shaman's drum. An ancient instrument whose skins and frames have been touched by hands both mortal and sacred, a conduit between worlds, a key to spirits unseen, a bridge between the tangible and the intangible. It is called across centuries, across tundras and taigas, across mountains and rivers, summoning those who listen with more than their ears, who perceive with more than their eyes. This drum is said to summon spirits, not in anger or malice, but in invitation, in the quiet dance of rhythm and intent, in the gentle coaxing of souls who linger near the edges of human perception. Imagine walking through Siberia on a winter's night, the sky a blanket of stars stretching to the horizon, the air crisp and biting, your breath visible, mingling with the smoke from distant hearths. Somewhere in this frozen wilderness, deep in a small yurt or hidden hut, the shaman prepares. The drum rests in front of them, round and taut, its surface painted with symbols that tell stories older than memory. The symbols are not merely decorative, they are maps of the cosmos, representations of spirits, animals, ancestors, and the forces that shape the unseen world. The frame of the drum is carved from birch or pine, smooth from hands that have held it for decades, and the skin is stretched tight, treated with oils and careful rituals that give it resonance beyond mere sound. When the shaman strikes it with a carefully balanced beater, the drum does not simply echo, it vibrates through the body, through the earth, through the air, through the mind, carrying with it an invitation to the spirits, a call across realms. Travelers and observers have described standing near a drum ceremony and feeling a pressure in the chest, a pulse that is not their own, a rhythm that seems to synchronize with the beating of their own heart. Some feel warmth, others cold, others a sense of presence, as if unseen beings have gathered quietly, respectfully, drawn to the vibrations that resonate between worlds. For the shamans of Siberia, the drum is sacred. It is an extension of themselves, a voice for spirits, a guide for journeys through the invisible realms, a protector in the face of danger, and a tool for healing. They strike the drum not recklessly, but with purpose, with ceremony, with understanding that each vibration carries intention. And for centuries, this drum has been passed down, a legacy of knowledge, power, and connection. It has touched the hands of countless shamans, each imprinting their own understanding upon its frame, their own energy upon its skin. Some shamans claim that when the drum strikes a particular rhythm, the veil between worlds thins, allowing communication with spirits of animals, ancestors, or natural forces. The beat can summon guidance, warnings, visions, or healing energies. And those who listen carefully often report experiences that defy rational explanation. Glimpses of shadowy forms, whispers carried by wind, sensations of movement when the forest is still. It is said that the drum has a memory, an essence that carries forward the intentions of those who wield it. Each ceremony, each strike, each whisper of prayer leaves an imprint, layering history within the drum itself, until it is more than wood and skin. It is consciousness, awareness, a silent participant in the ongoing dialogue between the physical and spiritual worlds. Imagine a shaman preparing for a ritual at the edge of a frozen river. The moon hangs low, reflecting off ice and snow, and the air vibrates with the expectation of unseen presences. The shaman breathes deeply, raises the beater, and begins to strike. At first the sound is soft, almost hesitant, blending with the natural rhythm of the wind through trees, the distant howl of wolves, the shifting of ice. Then the rhythm strengthens, steady and purposeful, rolling across the landscape, a heartbeat of intention, a signal that the ceremony has begun. In the shadows of the forest, animals pause, sensing the change. And in the human world, those attuned may feel a shiver, a presence, a subtle acknowledgement of forces at play, beyond comprehension. Participants in shamanic rituals have reported visions, sometimes vivid, sometimes subtle, dancing lights, shifting shadows, animals appearing as guides, ancestors offering counsel, and a deep sense of connection to the cosmos. The drum is central to this experience, its rhythm guiding consciousness, altering perception, opening doors that otherwise remain closed. Scholars and anthropologists have long sought to understand these phenomena. Scientific studies of shamanic drumming have revealed changes in brainwave activity, in heart rate, in perception, and yet none can fully explain the experience. There is something about the drum that transcends empirical measurement, something that touches the human spirit in ways that words cannot capture. The Siberian drum also carries cultural memory. It has survived harsh winters, the disruption of traditional ways, and the slow encroachment of modernity. Yet its presence remains resilient, a testament to the endurance of belief and practice. Each drum is unique, shaped by the hands that create it, by the spirits it seeks to honor, by the environment in which it is played. Some drums are small and portable, others are large and ceremonial, but all carry the same purpose: to bridge worlds, to summon spirits, to guide the living in harmony with forces beyond themselves. In the quiet moments between beats, one can imagine the spirits listening, acknowledging, moving closer or further as they choose. The drum does not command them, it invites them, offering a rhythm, a vibration, a presence, a channel, through which communication can occur. And the shaman, experienced and humble, becomes a participant in this exchange, a mediator, a vessel through which guidance and healing flow. Pilgrims and observers often describe a sense of timelessness during these ceremonies. Hours can feel like minutes, minutes like hours. Reality seems fluid. The line between self and other, between past and present, between the living and the unseen, blurs. It is in this liminal space that the drum speaks most clearly, carrying the weight of history, tradition, and spirituality. Imagine now a snowy landscape at twilight, the wind carrying the scent of pine and cold, the ground crisp underfoot, and in a small hut, a drum resounds. Each strike vibrates through the floorboards, through the walls, through the air, reaching out to spirits who linger in the forests and mountains. The shaman's hands are steady, eyes closed in concentration, body swaying subtly in rhythm, guiding the energy of the ceremony. And if one were to approach quietly, one might feel the pulse in their chest, the resonance in their mind, a subtle but undeniable connection to something beyond ordinary perception. The drum has been known to summon spirits of animals, bears, wolves, eagles, reindeer. These spirits are not corporeal in the human sense, but they manifest in vision, intuition, guidance. Some shamans report hearing messages carried on the drumbeat, subtle instructions for hunting, for healing, for navigating both physical and spiritual landscapes. Ancestors too are said to respond. Those who have passed are honored through the rhythms, acknowledged for their wisdom, remembered for their contributions to the continuity of community and tradition. The drum becomes a vessel, a medium, a living instrument that conveys respect, intention, and presence. Travelers who witness these ceremonies often describe feelings of awe, reverence, and humility. They sense the depth of connection between the shaman, the drum, the spirits, and the land itself. Some feel guided, some feel challenged, some feel comforted, and all are changed by the experience, if only subtly. In the modern world, the drum continues to hold significance. While technology and globalization encroach upon traditional ways, the shamanic drum remains a symbol of resilience, of connection to the natural and spiritual world, of the enduring importance of listening, of observing, of honoring forces larger than oneself. Museums may display them, documentaries may film them, but the true essence of the drum is realized only in practice, in ceremony, in the quiet, reverent beating that summons spirits not for spectacle, but for guidance, understanding, and balance. Each drumbeat is a lesson, each rhythm a story, each ceremony a reminder that humans are part of a larger web, that the physical world and the spiritual world are intertwined, that attention, respect, and intention matter. And as the night deepens, as snow drifts silently across frozen landscapes, as the stars glimmer faintly in the Siberian sky, the drum waits. Not for warriors, not for kings, not for fame, but for the moments when intention meets preparation, when respect meets skill, when the unseen world responds to the living. It waits to summon spirits, to teach lessons, to heal, to guide, to remind us of our connection to forces larger than ourselves. The sound of the drum echoes softly in memory, long after the ceremony has ended, long after the participants have returned to their homes, long after the shaman has laid the drum aside. Its voice lingers, a quiet hum in the mind, a heartbeat in the chest, a whisper in the soul. And in this lingering, the drum continues its work, connecting worlds, summoning spirits, guiding humanity in subtle, profound ways that transcend time, culture, and understanding. It is more than an object, it is a presence, a teacher, a companion, a bridge. And as the snow falls gently outside, as the wind sighs through the trees, as the silence of the Siberian wilderness enfolds all, the drum waits still, patiently, eternally, ready to speak when it is needed, ready to summon spirits when called with respect, ready to remind humanity of the mysteries that exist beyond the visible, the audible, the tangible. And in that waiting, in that patient resonance, the drum holds a lesson for all who listen, that some instruments are alive, that some objects carry the weight of worlds, that some rituals transcend centuries, that some spirits respond only to intention, and that the quiet, steady rhythm of understanding, respect, and presence is more powerful than any shout, any clamor, any act of force. And so, the shaman's drum waits in Siberia, calling softly, invisibly, inexorably, summoning not fear, not awe, not spectacle, but connection. It calls to the spirits, yes, but also to the hearts of those who understand the language of rhythm, the message of vibration, the ancient dialogue that transcends the limitations of human perception, carrying meaning that cannot be written, that cannot be captured in images, that cannot be measured in mere words. Only by feeling, by observing, by participating, can one truly understand the quiet majesty of the drum, the profound patience it embodies, the enduring wisdom it carries. And in this quiet, continuous waiting, the drum remains, timeless, eternal, sacred, summoning spirits, connecting worlds, and reminding humanity of the unseen, the unknown, the enduring mysteries of existence that whisper through wind, through snow, through stone, and through rhythm, waiting for those who are ready to listen, ready to learn, ready to hear. The helmet that spoke of shadows. In the quiet hills of Olympia, where the air carries the scent of olive groves and ancient stone, there lies a helmet. Not just any helmet, but one that has whispered across the centuries, a relic that holds shadows within its bronze curves, a mask that once adorned a warrior known only by fragments of history, a figure now mostly lost to time. The mask of the lord and warrior is not merely protective gear, it is a vessel of stories, of battles fought in heat and dust, of victories and defeats, of ceremonies and quiet moments where a man or woman, cloaked in bronze, became more than flesh, more than mortal. Imagine walking through Olympia, the ruins of temples around you, the stones worn smooth by thousands of footsteps, and encountering this helmet, carefully preserved, its surface marked with the faintest traces of age, its eye holes hollow but expressive, as though the warrior's gaze still lingers within, still watches, still waits. The helmet is bronze, heavy but balanced, shaped to fit the contours of a face long vanished. Around its edges, subtle engravings form patterns, swirls, lines, symbols that are almost imperceptible yet carry meaning, a language of shadow and form that only the keenest observer can interpret. Some scholars believe these marks were more than decorative. They were talismans, warding symbols, invokes to gods, spirits, or the unseen forces that accompany combat and survival. Others whisper that the helmet itself is sentient in a way, that it remembers, that it holds within it not just the shape of a warrior's head, but the echoes of every thought, every fear, every breath taken while it was worn. The story of the Lord and warrior is shrouded in mystery. No records exist that detail his or her name, the battles fought, or the exact origin of the mask. Only fragments of inscriptions and oral histories hint at a figure of great importance, one who stood on the line between mortal danger and divine observation, between light and shadow, between history and legend. The helmet is said to speak, not in words, but in presence. When placed in certain light, the shadows within its contours seem to shift, forming shapes that are almost faces, almost figures, almost memories. It is as if the mask retains a consciousness of its own, reflecting not only the environment, but the thoughts of those who stand near it, the intentions they carry, the quiet fears and hidden desires that linger in the human mind. In the silence of a museum hall, or in the secluded darkness of a storage chamber, one might feel the weight of that gaze. One might feel the subtle pull of recognition, the sense that the helmet is aware of being observed, that it remembers the hands that once wore it, that it holds the energy of life and death in suspended motion. Scholars have debated the origins of the mask for centuries. Was it crafted for ceremonial purposes, to honor gods or ancestors? Or was it a battlefield mask, designed to intimidate foes, to hide the identity of the wearer, to give courage to one who would face death in bronze? Evidence suggests both. The engravings indicate ritual significance, while the wear patterns suggest actual combat. This duality, of life and performance, of reality and ceremony, is precisely what makes the mask so compelling, so unsettling, so alive in memory. The Lordan warrior, when wearing the helmet, was said to become other. Eyes behind the bronze holes glimmered with intention, with focus, with something beyond human comprehension. The mask transformed fear into courage, hesitation into decisiveness, shadow into form. Some accounts suggest that the warrior could hear whispers within the bronze, voices of gods or ancestors guiding strategy, warning of danger, offering counsel only perceptible to those willing to surrender fully to the presence of the mask. Others have written of shadows that followed the warrior, shapes that seemed to flicker at the edge of vision, neither fully corporeal nor fully spirit. The helmet became both protector and conduit, a bridge between life and death, between known and unknown, between heroism and legend. Imagine, if you will, a battlefield at dawn. Mist rises from olive groves and rivers. The Lordan warrior stands among companions, the helmet fitted securely, bronze glinting faintly in the sun. In the quiet moments before engagement, before shields clashed and spears thrust, the shadows within the mask begin to stir. Faces form, barely perceptible, guiding, watching, judging. The warrior feels them, feels their presence, feels the weight of history pressing gently upon the brow and temples. When the battle erupts, the mask transforms perception. The world narrows, the senses sharpen, the sound of armor, the smell of earth, the sight of movement, all filter through the bronze, processed, amplified, interpreted. Every step, every strike, every parry becomes more than action. It becomes part of a rhythm, a dance with both life and death, a performance observed not only by human comrades, but by the silent audience of shadows within the helmet. Over centuries, the helmet has passed hands, each wearer leaving a subtle imprint. Tiny scratches, faint dents, slight discolorations, all tell stories that no historian can fully read, but which the mask itself remembers. Each imprint adds to the consciousness of the mask, deepening its connection to those who stand behind it, those who confront mortal danger, those who seek courage in the presence of ancient bronze and shadowed intent. In the quiet of a museum, when all lights are dimmed and the hum of visitors has faded, some claim they can hear the faintest sound, a whisper, a breath, a movement within the mask. It is never loud, never intrusive, but it is persistent, a gentle reminder that the helmet is not just artifact, but living memory. Visitors report a sense of being watched, not threateningly, but knowingly, as though the mask recognizes the intention of the observer. Some describe subtle chills, a tightening of the chest, the sensation of an unseen gaze following every movement. It is as if the mask communicates through presence alone, through shadow alone, through the quiet weight of history and consciousness. The helmet has also been associated with dreams. Those who have studied it closely sometimes report vivid visions of the lord and warrior, of battles, of rituals, of quiet moments alone in the olive groves. Dreams that feel more like memories than imagination. Shadows that speak in movements, not words. Guidance that arrives in intuition rather than sound. Some dream of faces forming within the bronze, shifting and swirling, offering counsel, warning of danger, revealing insight hidden in the folds of shadow. The mask of the lord and warrior reminds us that objects carry memory, that artifacts are not inert, that bronze and shadow, and human intent combine to preserve consciousness in ways subtle, profound, and enduring. Each visitor who approaches it, each scholar who studies it, each restorer who touches it, becomes part of the ongoing narrative, part of the rhythm between past and present, between mortal and divine, between the tangible and the shadowed. The ancient Greeks, particularly in Olympia, understood the power of such objects. Masks, helmets, talismans, they were not merely functional but symbolic, vessels of essence, channels for inspiration, protection, and connection to forces beyond comprehension. The Loredan warrior's helmet embodies this understanding, a fusion of craft, purpose, and transcendence, carrying the whispers of centuries, the shadowed gaze of a warrior, and the silent presence of those who observe beyond human perception. As centuries passed, the helmet survived fires, wars, decay, and the slow erosion of time. It remained, not by accident, but by intention, by care, by the recognition of its significance. Each scratch tells a story, each curve holds a memory, each shadowed recess preserves a fragment of consciousness. And even today, as modernity encroaches, as tourists wander through ruins and halls, the mask holds its vigil. It continues to speak of shadows, not through sound but through presence, through subtle perception, through the quiet impression it leaves on those who approach with respect, curiosity, and openness to the unseen. Imagine standing before it in Olympia, alone, as the sun sets behind distant hills, casting long shadows across stone and marble. The helmet sits silently in its case, yet there is awareness in the room. The faintest hint of movement seems to ripple through the bronze. Shadows lengthen and contract, and for a moment, one feels that they are not just looking at an artifact, but at a witness, a participant, a presence. The Loredan warrior lives in the contours of the bronze, in the hollows of its eyes, in the silence that surrounds it. Time collapses. Past and present coexist. The line between observer and observed blurs, and one is left with a profound sense of connection to something greater, something older, something alive within shadow and metal. The helmet is more than history. It is a conversation with memory, spirit, and form. It reminds us that objects carry intention, that shadows hold meaning, that courage and fear, life and death, light and dark, are intertwined in ways subtle, persistent, and profound. And so it waits. The mask of the Loredan warrior, a sentinel of bronze and shadow, speaking without words, calling without sound, preserving stories without ink or scroll, and inviting those who encounter it to pause, to observe, to feel, and to remember the mysteries that lie within the intersection of human craft and human spirit. Each time a visitor stands before it, a scholar studies its engravings, or a dreamer dreams of its presence. The helmet speaks anew, echoing across time, across centuries, across the fragile yet enduring bridge between the living and the memory of the living, the known and the shadowed, the mortal and the immortal. And in this quiet, endless dialogue, the helmet fulfills its purpose, not to terrify, not to intimidate, not to dominate, but to preserve, to observe, to connect, to whisper of shadows that are older than memory, yet present in every heartbeat of those who are willing to listen, to feel, and to see beyond the surface. And in this presence, one realizes that the mask of the Loredan warrior is not merely a helmet, but a story, a presence, a silent companion across the ages, reminding us that the past is never truly gone, that shadows speak, that bronze remembers, and that some artifacts carry more than history. They carry consciousness, memory, and a connection to forces and intentions that transcend the boundaries of time, space, and perception. The lantern that outshone darkness. In the heart of ancient Rome, where the stones of the streets were worn smooth by countless feet, and the air hummed with the voices of merchants, senators, soldiers, and beggars alike, there existed a lamp unlike any other. Not merely a vessel for flame, not merely a source of light, but something altogether more enigmatic, more enduring, more alive. This was the eternal flame lamp, a creation of bronze and gold, designed in such a way that the fire it held could never be fully extinguished, never wholly consumed, and never entirely ignored. It glowed with a radiance that seemed to reach beyond the physical, touching not just the eyes but the mind, the heart, and perhaps even the soul. Crafted in an age where artisans and priests collaborated closely, the lamp was housed in a small, dedicated temple, tucked away near the Forum Romanum, yet shielded from the eyes of casual onlookers. The bronze body of the lamp was molded into flowing curves that suggested movement even when still, as though the vessel itself breathed in sync with the fire it held. Gold filigree traced intricate patterns along its edges, depicting scenes of the city, of gods and mortals, of sacrifice and triumph. Tiny vents and channels allowed the flame to flicker and dance, producing shadows that seemed to move independently of the flame itself, tracing shapes that were familiar and yet subtly alien, patterns that could hypnotize, inspire awe, or even bring unease to those unaccustomed to such quiet, enigmatic beauty. The lamp burned with a peculiar quality. It was said that ordinary oil would not suffice; only a carefully prepared mixture, preserved and adjusted by devoted priests, could sustain its glow. This mixture was kept secret, a closely guarded formula handed down through generations of Vestal virgins and temple caretakers, women of utmost devotion and patience, who dedicated their lives to tending this eternal fire. They whispered prayers as they added oil, adjusted the wick, and observed the flame, noting subtle variations that could indicate the approach of misfortune, the favor of the gods, or the needs of the city itself. To witness the lamp was to confront a paradox. It was both constant and ever-changing, a steady beacon whose subtle variations reflected the world around it. The flame itself seemed to have a rhythm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, shifting in ways that could convey emotion, intention, even warning. Scholars wrote of its unusual effects. Those who stared too long into the flame might see visions of the past, the founding of Rome, the triumphs and failures of emperors long gone, scenes of battles, processions, and secret councils that shaped the city's destiny. Some visions were subtle, fleeting, a flicker suggesting a figure moving in the shadows, while others were vivid and elaborate, almost dreamlike in their intensity, as though the lamp reached through time to share its memories with the observer. The flame could also project subtle warmth and light into spaces far beyond its physical location. Stories abound of travelers lost in the winding streets of Rome, suddenly finding their way, guided by an inexplicable glow, not a torch, not a lamp, not even a candle, but a faint, steady light that seemed to emanate from the very air, as though the eternal flame lamp extended its vigilance across distance and circumstance. Merchants would pause before it, and their goods seemed to prosper, coins appearing where needed, contracts aligning with fortune. Soldiers, weary from distant campaigns, claimed that resting near the lamp gave clarity, courage, and insight into the decisions they must make in the coming day. And priests who studied its behavior noted that the flame responded to their moods, subtly shifting in intensity and pattern, as if reflecting human thought and emotion back to those who served it. The lamp's origin remains shrouded in mystery, as though it arrived fully formed from some divine inspiration. Some records suggest it was first introduced in the early days of the city, gifted by a priestly order who had studied fire as a sacred element, while other accounts place it in the time of Augustus, a carefully crafted artifact meant to symbolize Rome's eternal destiny. Regardless of its provenance, the lamp endured, preserved through careful tending, guarded against the chaos of war, the instability of politics, and the passage of centuries. In the quiet of the temple, one could hear the soft sounds of devotion. The Vestal virgins moved silently along the marble floors, their sandals whispering against stone as they adjusted the lamp, replenished its oil, and whispered prayers. The air carried faint aromas of olive oil, incense, and smoke, a delicate blend that seemed inseparable from the lamp itself. Shadows danced in intricate patterns, curling along walls and columns, hinting at forms of gods, ancestors, or perhaps the city's own spirit. There was a discipline to tending the flame. Caretakers would rise at first light, carefully inspect the wick, cleanse the oil reservoir, and whisper the prayers that had been passed down through generations. They would note any unusual flicker, any variation in warmth, any subtle shift in the shadows that might indicate danger or divine favor. In this careful observation, a connection developed, almost imperceptible but undeniable, between human and flame. To outsiders, the lamp may have seemed inert, just a light, but to the devoted, it was a living presence, a partner in ritual, a mirror of the city's fortune, a guide to both action and contemplation. And so the lamp endured, quietly influencing the lives of all who came near it. Its glow touched not only the immediate temple but extended invisibly, subtly, through the city. Romans claimed to feel its influence even in private homes, in courtyards, in marketplaces. Children would awaken in the night to the soft glimmer of light that seemed to seep through walls, guiding them back to safety. Scholars and philosophers would speak of the lamp in metaphor, of a light that illuminated not only spaces but minds, that outshone the darkness of ignorance, fear, or uncertainty. Its stories became legend. Accounts of the lamp spread quietly, whispered from citizen to citizen, through families, across neighborhoods, growing in subtle ways with each retelling. Tales of the lamp predicting events, guiding soldiers, blessing merchants, and inspiring devotion took root in Roman consciousness. And yet, despite the tales, the lamp never drew attention in a grandiose way. It never demanded worship beyond the quiet reverence it inspired. It simply existed, burning steadily, observing, illuminating, guiding in ways that were profound precisely because they were unobtrusive. As centuries passed, the lamp survived fires, invasions, and political upheaval. When temples were threatened, it was hidden in secret chambers, smuggled through back streets, and relit in new locations by devoted priests who understood its significance. It was not merely preserved as an artifact but protected as a living force, a continuity of human and divine connection. In contemplating the lamp, one also contemplates the delicate interplay of light and shadow, presence and absence, constancy and change. The flame demonstrated that even a small, persistent light could influence an entire city, shaping perception, guiding action, and preserving memory. It reminded all who observed it that darkness is never absolute, and that light, tended with care, can endure beyond expectation. And so, in the quiet of the temple, as dusk settled over Rome, and shadows stretched along marble floors, the eternal flame lamp glowed steadily, faithfully, unyieldingly. It whispered secrets of the past, hinted at the possibilities of the future, and illuminated the present with gentle, unwavering brilliance. To those who paused, who observed, who allowed themselves to feel the subtle messages encoded in the flicker and warmth, it was more than a lamp, it was a companion, a teacher, a witness, and a guide. Through its steady glow, the eternal flame lamp outshone darkness, not only in the literal sense of illuminating spaces, but in the figurative sense of guiding hearts, minds, and souls through uncertainty, fear, and ignorance. And in that quiet presence, the lamp achieved a kind of immortality. For its influence, its lessons, its light endured far beyond the mortal lifespans of those who tended it, leaving a legacy of vigilance, devotion, and the enduring power of a carefully preserved flame. Its story is one that whispers across time, inviting contemplation, reflection, and wonder. Even today, standing in the ruins of Rome, one can almost feel the faint echo of that light, the subtle warmth of fire that once guided emperors, priests, merchants, soldiers, and ordinary citizens alike. It is a reminder that even the smallest light, when preserved with care and devotion, can transcend time, outshine darkness, and leave an enduring imprint on the human soul, teaching patience, reverence, and the quiet, profound beauty of continuity. As night deepened over the city, Rome settled into a rhythm of subtle sounds, the distant lap of the Tiber against its embankments, the soft murmur of late-night travelers returning from taverns or temples, the occasional call of a guard, or the clatter of a cart navigating the uneven stones. Within the sacred temple that housed the eternal flame lamp, the glow continued unabated, casting a gentle warmth that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the city itself. The Vestal virgins moved in near-silent reverence, tending to the flame with motions perfected over decades. Each adjustment of the wick, each addition of the secreted oil mixture, was carried out with care that bordered on ritual choreography, as if the act itself was a prayer encoded in movement. To watch them was to witness a dialogue between human and flame, a conversation in which words were unnecessary, replaced by gestures, observation, and subtle attentiveness. Some nights, the flame appeared unusually bright, flickering with an almost impatient energy, as though eager to impart some knowledge or signal some impending event. At times like these, the priests would gather close, lowering their voices to whispers, interpreting the movements of the fire in ways that transcended ordinary observation. They saw not just light and shadow, but the contours of possibility, the echoes of history, and the faint outlines of fate. Those attuned to the flame learned to recognize its moods. A slow, steady flicker might signify calm, stability, or divine favor, while sudden jumps or curling wisps could hint at unrest, danger, or the need for caution. Sometimes, the flame appeared to stretch toward specific objects or individuals, as if guiding attention or offering subtle warning. The citizens of Rome, though often unaware of the lamp's true power, were touched by it nonetheless. Merchants noticed inexplicable patterns of fortune, coins appearing in the right hands at the right moment, deals proceeding smoothly, shipments arriving just when needed. Soldiers reported uncanny clarity in their thoughts, insights into strategy, or an unerring sense of direction during campaigns. Scholars and philosophers found their minds unusually receptive to insight, creativity, and memory, often attributing their breakthroughs to divine inspiration, though in truth, the lamp's influence was quieter, more pervasive, a gentle illumination of the mind rather than a spectacular show. On some nights, the flame seemed to bridge more than distance or intellect. It bridged time. Observers would experience fleeting visions of the past, ghostly impressions of events that had shaped the city. The founding of Rome by Romulus, the triumphs of great generals, the ceremonies of emperors long gone, the tragedies of wars and plagues. These visions were never literal recordings, they were impressions, moods, emotions, glimpses of circumstance that allowed one to feel the weight and rhythm of history as though walking alongside it. And yet the flame did not discriminate. Ordinary citizens, children, Travelers, and the uninitiated, could sometimes catch fragments of these visions if they lingered too long, staring into the lamp with curiosity or awe. The effect was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A sense of familiarity with things unseen, an intuition of events never personally witnessed, but gradually the experience deepened, a quiet awareness that the city carried stories older and more enduring than any individual life. There were moments when the lamp seemed almost sentient. Observers would swear it responded to intent, subtly altering its brightness or shadow patterns in acknowledgement, encouragement, or caution. A merchant hesitant about a decision might glance at the flame and find it flickering toward a particular corridor or direction in the temple, guiding intuition. A soldier uncertain in strategy might sense a slight warmth shifting toward his hand as he reached for a map or weapon, a silent reassurance or prompt to trust his instincts. The effect was neither magical in the dramatic sense nor theatrical. It was subtle, patient, cumulative, a quiet shaping of perception and action over time. Pilgrims and visitors occasionally arrived, drawn by tales of a lamp that outshone darkness in both literal and metaphorical senses. They would enter the temple quietly, some skeptical, some reverent, and encounter a flame that defied easy explanation. Many left in contemplative silence, experiencing sensations they could neither fully articulate nor forget. The flame's influence, though unobtrusive, often lingered. The memory of the light, its warmth, the feeling of connection, subtly reshaping the observer's outlook or behavior long after leaving the temple. During the hours of deepest night, the temple took on an almost sacred stillness. Sounds from the outside world softened, filtered through stone and shadow. The lamp's glow grew more intense, paradoxically, as if feeding off the stillness, illuminating not just the temple floor, but the very air, the columns, the distant walls in a halo of subtle radiance. Within this quiet, some caretakers reported hearing faint murmurs, not voices in a conventional sense but impressions of communication, a language beyond words, embedded in rhythm, flicker, and warmth. These were interpreted as messages from the gods, or perhaps the city itself, encoded in light rather than sound. Scholars in later generations would speculate that the lamp's unique construction, its venting, its mixture of metals, its carefully designed oil channels, produced subtle interactions of light and air that could influence human perception in ways not fully understood. But for the priests and Vestal virgins, it was simpler. The flame was alive, a living presence, deserving of attention, care, and devotion. Over time, legends intertwined with the lamp's reality. Tales of its unwavering glow, surviving fires, invasions, and political upheaval circulated quietly, enhancing its mystique. Stories told of attempts by ambitious rulers to claim or replicate the lamp, only for the copies to fail, the flame to dim or vanish entirely, and the originals to remain untarnished, as if the lamp itself discerned worthiness, guarding its essence from unworthy hands. The eternal flame lamp became a symbol of constancy amidst change, a beacon whose significance transcended the physical object, embodying the perseverance of memory, devotion, and the subtle influence of a carefully tended light. It demonstrated that power need not be loud or violent to be profound, that guidance can be gentle and enduring, that the simplest flame, tended with care, could shape the lives of thousands, even centuries later. Visitors who lingered often found themselves thinking differently, feeling differently. They reported moments of unexpected clarity, sudden empathy, or subtle courage. Soldiers would approach tasks with steadier hands, merchants would negotiate with an almost unexplainable advantage, and scholars would solve problems that had previously seemed intractable. Even children, merely passing by, sometimes paused, captivated by the lamp's warmth, the way shadows flickered across walls and floors. A few would dream dreams suffused with gentle light, dreams in which the past and future seemed interwoven, teaching lessons about patience, observation, and the quiet accumulation of wisdom. In this way, the lamp outshone darkness not as a spectacle but as a slow, subtle, pervasive influence, guiding lives in ways that were invisible yet unmistakable. It was a lesson in endurance, patience, and the quiet, unyielding presence of attention and care. As centuries continued their inexorable march, the lamp endured through periods of uncertainty. Political upheavals swept Rome, emperors rose and fell, foreign invaders breached gates, and the city transformed in ways unimaginable to its founders. Yet within its sacred chamber the flame persisted, a quiet observer of history, unchanging in essence though sensitive to circumstance. The lamp witnessed secret councils, heard whispered prayers, absorbed the aspirations and fears of citizens and rulers alike, and reflected these experiences in its flicker, its warmth, its subtle motion. Even when temples were desecrated or abandoned, the lamp was hidden, transported carefully, preserved by those who understood its profound significance. Its light became a thread connecting generations, a bridge across time, a continuity that defied chaos, decay, and neglect. And in its glow, those who paused to watch discovered that darkness is not a force to be combated with aggression or noise. but a presence to be acknowledged, illuminated, and transcended with patience, care, and understanding. To follow the flame was to understand rhythm, impermanence, and influence. To respect the lamp was to respect the subtlety of guidance, the quiet shaping of perception, and the enduring power of a persistent, mindful presence. As dawn approached, the city gradually stirred, markets opened, streets filled with life, and the ordinary rhythms of Roman existence resumed. Yet within the temple, the lamp continued to burn, unwavering, patiently observing, silently shaping the world through quiet illumination. In this it remained eternal, a teacher, a guide, a witness, and a companion, outshining darkness not through spectacle, but through steadfast presence, subtle influence, and the enduring quiet power of a flame, carefully tended, revered, and understood across centuries. Its story echoes still, a testament to the enduring potency of light, attention, and devotion, and a reminder that even the smallest, quietest presence, maintained with care and patience, can outshine the darkness that surrounds it, touching lives far beyond its immediate reach, shaping history in ways invisible yet profound, leaving an enduring imprint upon all who pause to witness it. Thank you for joining us on Unearthed Secrets. If you enjoyed exploring these mysteries, please hit subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep wondering.